once I could think clearly, I know I can't, if I descend and fall into this pit, I will have a really, really hard time of getting out. And I don't want to do that. But I also don't want to not talk about it because I'm just not like that. I get energy from people. So I like talking about things. So that really shaped how I moved forward and how I treated the situation.
Hello, and welcome to the Art of Living Well podcast. I'm Stephanie May Potter, and I'm here with my co-host, Marnie Dotches-Marmette.
We created the Art of Living Well podcast to empower you to live your happiest, healthiest, and most authentic life. Each week, we will bring you inspiring and motivating conversations covering health and wellness topics, including fitness, mindset, food, travel, product reviews, and strategies from a variety of experts, including our own bank of knowledge.
We are excited to educate, motivate, and inspire you to change the way you perceive health and discover your art of living well. Get ready to feel inspired.
Hello, and welcome to episode 70 of the Art of Living Well podcast. Before we dive into today's episode, we have several exciting announcements for our podcast community. We are so excited to introduce the Art of Living Well Membership Tribe, which is a new premium membership for our community that we created for people just like you who deserve to find their art of living well. We know how great you feel when you're taking care of yourself. The problem is this can be hard to implement and sustain, and we know how much confusion exists about what your mind, body, and soul need to thrive. We believe that a roadmap and accountability are super important as you move along your health and wellness journey and you develop sustainable habits for life. We know you want to feel amazing in your own skin and have a community of like-minded people to hold you accountable to whatever you want to achieve. So when you're part of our membership tribe, you will have access to me and Stephanie. We'll have live videos and Q&As each month. You'll get guided meditations, recipe books, private daily support chat in the community, and so much more. We created this program based on what our clients were asking for. We are so excited. So head on over to theartoflivingwell.us/programs for more information, and you can access all our program details using the link in our show notes. We also have a favor for each of you. We want to ask that if you're enjoying our podcast, if you would take just 2 minutes to leave us a rating and a review on Apple Podcasts. Doing so helps us reach more people so that others can benefit from our inspiring conversations and resources that we share each week. If you enjoy the episode, we'd love it if you'd share it with a friend, family member, or anyone who you may think would benefit from this information. Thank you. And a few more quick announcements. We wanted to let you know that we have a free online workout guide which supports lots of small and female-owned businesses. You can find the link to download this guide in our show notes or on our Instagram profile. And our 7-day community functional liver detox is coming up. It's right around the corner. It will kick off on April 5th. We've had so much great feedback, and we would love for you to join us this spring. We're adding some more layers to this detox for those of you who have done it with us in the past. And we're just really excited. There's going to be some guided meditations, some new modules on topics, including intuitive eating and mindfulness. And check out the show notes for the link on how to register, or go to our Instagram or Facebook pages. And now we are thrilled to bring you today's guest, Tommy Surly. Tommy is the co-founder and CEO of Wellnest Journal. Wellnest is a fun and easy journaling app that prompts you on your day and emotions and can guide you through specific issues and courses. Tommy founded Wellnest shortly before graduating from the University of Michigan with a bachelor's degree in computer science engineering. During our conversation today, we talk a lot about student mental health, the student mental health crisis, and the stigmas surrounding mental health issues and going to therapy. Tommy gives out a lot of practical tips on journaling and setting reminders, and he shares his very powerful personal story And Stephanie and I were just so incredibly impressed with Tommy and his team that have developed this app. They're young entrepreneurs, and we have both used the app. We think it's amazing. We love the recording feature and how simple and easy it is to journal each day. And before we hear from Tommy, a quick word from our sponsor. This episode is brought to you by our wonderful sponsor, Appetite for Change. Appetite for Change is a nonprofit in North Minneapolis that uses food as a tool for health, wealth, and social change. This year, in light of COVID and the unrest in Minneapolis, Appetite for Change has continued to ground themselves in their mission and center their work around community, connection, and nourishing food.
They launched a pilot program called Community Cooks Meal Boxes, which provides fresh produce and pantry items, plus 2 recipes for over 300 families at no cost to the family. The program has been such a success that it has been extended for another 6 weeks and will continue into 2021. AFC has utilized the kitchens of their 2 restaurants, Breaking Bread Cafe and Station 81, to produce over 200,000 meals that have been distributed across the Twin Cities to healthcare workers, seniors, and families in need.
In addition, they have 7 farm plots across North Minneapolis that are tended to by community members and Appetite for Change youth learning how to grow a variety of plants. These fresh fruits and vegetables are distributed throughout the North Side. Even in 2021, Appetite for Change is committed to building a more equitable food system by delivering fresh and nourishing food to healthcare workers, seniors, and families in need, tending urban gardens, and more.
We have been collaborating with Appetite for Change over this past year, and we have loved their dedication to their mission, and we so look forward to volunteering with their organization and working with them more in 2021. To learn more about Appetite for Change, listen to episode 31 of our podcast with one of their founders, Michelle Horowitz.
For more information or to donate, head on over to appetiteforchangemn.org/impact or on Instagram and Facebook at Appetite for Change. Hi, Tommy. Thank you so much for being a guest on the Art of Living Well podcast today. We are so excited to share your energy, knowledge, and inspiration about this new journaling app you've created for mental health with our listeners today. And the way I came to Tommy is that my son, who goes to the University of Michigan, happened to mention to me during the lockdown in the spring that a guy that was in his fraternity that had graduated created this app that I might be interested in that deals with mental health and journaling. And he showed it to me and I was like, wow, that's so cool. How amazing is it that these young guys are doing this right out of college? And I'm like, can you put me in touch with them? So here we are today.
So nice to finally meet you, Marnie. I appreciate you having me on the call. Thank you. And nice to meet you too, Stephanie. Super happy to be here, talk about my story. It is totally crazy that met Zach through that. Super happy he put us in touch, and yeah, just excited to talk and get to know you guys and dive deep into this. So thank you for having me.
Yes. And so, Tommy, everyone has a story, and we would love for you to share your personal journey and how you decided to create this journaling app from I'm assuming based on your own personal experiences.
Yeah. I mean, I guess we'll just dive right into it. My freshman year of college, I lost my dad to suicide, and I had little to no idea what mental health meant or how it affected people very much before then. I had my own light to moderate struggles in high school with anxiety and general pressure, but not really having a full understanding of the spectrum of mental health, and then obviously seeing the worst side of that spectrum. So it was really shocking for me in a lot of ways, but really just trying to understand how it had happened and why. And I spent many months like trying to wrestle with that and understanding like how I would move forward with it. And not only was I just so lost because of what had happened, but also surprised by the amount of friends and family that I had known for like my whole life or many months at Michigan at the time, who would share their stories about how they struggled with mental health, or they knew someone who had. And it just really shocked me. It was, it felt like this unveiling of a curtain where I then saw this community really clearly that wasn't present to me before. And it took something like that to open that up and open my eyes to it. And that's actually something that I've seen with a lot of my friends, where they, start to run into some issues, or they, something happens where they're in a new mental state and they don't know how to approach it. And that's really when they start to see like how many other people are struggling. And that's a separate issue on its own. But I just ended up going to therapy at Michigan. I had a great counselor there, but was really still found it really hard to go to therapy, like to make that leap, both like tangible reasons, like with availability and scheduling and finding the right therapist, things like that, but also just the intangible were greater than I thought it was gonna be, of the stigma and fear, and I don't need a therapist, and all of those negative thinkings and thoughts that led me to not want to go. But I'm really glad I did. And ended up just getting really involved in the mental health community at Michigan. I ran mental health awareness campaigns throughout my time there. I sold shirts with my dad's beer logo on it, and like donated all the proceeds to this awesome foundation called the Brain and Behavior Research Foundation. Thought I was only going to do it once, and then ended up doing it like 4 or 5 times. And just absolutely loved every time I saw someone with the shirt or the hoodie or whatever it was that we sold. It just totally made me feel so much more loved. And that was something to me, I was like, this is just so powerful. And there are so many people that really do care. And maybe you just don't see them. So I think that was just a really transformational period of my life, when we did that, and ended up pursuing my interest in computer science very separately. Like I worked at a couple startups. I was part of a few really cool communities at Michigan, one particular being Shift, that I really enjoyed and grew in, and ended up working at LinkedIn one summer. And I met this girl, Mars, there, who was a cognitive science student at Michigan. She had been a lifelong journaler, and she was talking to me about how she was really passionate about it. And I was talking to her about how I had these 2 friends at Michigan, who were like my best friends. And we were always wanting to work on something together. And we wanted to build some sort of like self-care app, because we were so frustrated with how few resources we saw on the university campus, like the university ecosystem. And she was super excited about it, was picking my brain a lot about it. And I ended up being like, yeah, like, you should come back to Michigan. When we go back to Michigan, like, you should meet my friends and we can get together about this. And we ended up doing that. And that's kind of how Wellnest started. So we had a few meetings early on in the year, and ended up getting these focus groups together where we would like put signs around campus and email a bunch of the like listservs and get people together, and just, it almost like turned into like group therapy sessions where we were really just like trying to learn like how people dealt with things, the resources that they looked for, and like who they talked to, what they commonly struggled with, how they knew they were struggling, just like a lot of these questions that honestly you don't get asked all the time by your friends and family, and are super important to talk about, right? And sometimes like you can go many months without thinking about these things, and life just ticks on, and that's okay. But it was great, and it was really good to get these thoughts out there. And we just saw how helpful it was for people to have a medium to talk about that. And that by the end of these sessions, people were leaving like, and they were, we were there to like learn about how we could help them. And they were leaving like telling us how we had already helped them. And I was like, okay, I didn't expect that, but this is cool. And we ended up wanting to create a space that people could have those conversations, even if it's with themselves, like in their own home. So like we were like, okay, clearly this helped people. Maybe if we can prompt people to talk about these things by themselves, like whenever they want, maybe that would help them feel better about like how they're doing. And so we ended up just like hosting this very simple like server web app where we would host different questions. Like some were about your day, some were about like a specific topic. Like we were testing all sorts of things, and we would just text people the link to it every morning. And it grew, from like 15 to 30, like 50 people. And we were like, okay, like people are enjoying this and somehow liking it. And we're like, why don't we just make this available for everyone? And this is right around the time when COVID was hitting. So we put it up on this site called Product Hunt, and it grew to like the third product of the day. And we got a bunch of people using it and telling us like why it was great, but also why it was awful. And I was like, this is awesome. Like people care about it so much that they're telling me what can be better. And we were like, okay, this is great. Like we were getting all this like really good critical feedback and like refining like how we were building the web app, and ended up really becoming interested in one, like building a mobile app, primarily because we thought it would be cool if people could use their voice to make entries, because we thought it was so therapeutic to just talk about things. So we immediately started building that mobile app and kind of have been going from there. And it's just very focused on letting you unpack what's going on in your head, whether that's just talking about your day or your mood, or maybe going on more specific topics like imposter syndrome or self-confidence or your relationship with food. We have really awesome like courses and like topic packs that you can talk about. And really that's what Wellnest is right now. We are really focused on, I'd say, three things. Approachability. We thought that a lot of the self-care and mental health resources that we saw again on campus were more oriented to the clinical side of things, which is fantastic and is absolutely needed. But for people who are just starting to struggle, like what we call the first step, they might want something that's a little bit less intimidating. So we wanted to build something that felt light, felt fun, felt conversational, like a conversation with your friend, and felt really easy to do. So that's just kind of what we built. And again, that's like one of the pillars that we work on. And then the second is like just making everything feel almost like a game. We think that for the next generation, the first step of mental health will almost feel like a game, almost like how Duolingo transformed language learning into something that was really enjoyable and motivational, and incorporated a lot of those like techniques of game design and gamification. So we were really interested in building that almost for mindfulness, and making it feel like that. And yeah, that's kind of what we're excited about, what we're building on right now. We're building on a lot of like personalization techniques too right now to make it super curated and custom for you. And yeah, that's where we're at. We just launched on the App Store on December 1st. So that's been super exciting. Yeah, we're raising a little bit of money right now too. So that's really cool. And it's just been a really, really fantastic journey. Not only learning from the people who are using Wellnest, we have about 1,000 people using it every week right now. And we've had over, 15,000 entries made on the app, which is awesome. So people are really talking on it, and having fun conversations with themselves. So that's just really our goal is to allow people to explore what's going on in their head and unpack things. And that's kind of the mission that we see ourselves driving towards in the next 5 to 10 years. So that's kind of where we are. I apologize for the long-winded answer, but that's where we're at right now.
Well, thank you for that. And first, Tommy, thank you for sharing a very personal story. Really, really, my heart goes out to you and your family. And I love that you took something pretty tragic and personal and then turned it into good, and what you've done and the energy that you used to explore what others need, not just yourself, and then create this amazing product. So, I mean, there's so much we want to uncover with what you just said and shared with us.
Yeah.
And I love, though, just how you talked about unpacking what's going on in your head, because I think that's where all of us get stuck in our head in all ages, and making it really accessible and approachable. And I love how you can just do a voice journal entry, because I mean, we're on our phones a lot more sometimes than we have a pen and paper by us. And
Yeah.
journaling can be very intimidating, and you've clearly seen the value of it, but not everyone's there. So this makes it very accessible. So anyway,
Thank you. Appreciate it.
yeah. And maybe we could dive in a little bit and just talk about like how the app works a little bit.
Yeah. So Wellnest is super simple. You open it up. And after you've made an account, you can talk about just what's going on in your day. So we call it a daily and an evening conversation. So like setting intentions for your day or talking about what's coming up. That's really our the kind of questions that help people become just a little bit more clear-headed and organized, or like wrap up their day with the evening conversation, wind down, which is really nice. And then we have like a mood check. So it allows you to click on a bunch of these like interactive bubbles that float around and say like what moods you're feeling. And you can like respond. It'll ask you why you're feeling those moods, and you can kind of talk about it and unpack that, which is great. And then again, we have those like deeper dive courses. So those are like long sets of questions on imposter syndrome, self-confidence, anxiety, whatever that is, and that you can just talk about over a sustained period. So those are like things that if you're struggling with something and you want to talk about it on a more consistent basis, you would start a course and talk about it. It would take around like 15 to 20 days to complete if you did like one entry per day. And that's basically it. We transcribe all of the text for you. So for example, let's say I wanted to do the daily conversation. I'd click on that and it would ask me, like what's going on today? Or is there anything that you're worried about? And I would just click the red button and I'd start speaking and it would transcribe everything for me. So I don't have to type. Of course you can type if you need to, like if you're in a place or situation where you want to do that. Some people find that easier. I like using my voice a lot because it just feels better for me. And it's also a lot faster. So I use my voice, it transcribes everything for me. And then when I'm done, I get this like fun little reward. I get some coins for journaling that day. And you can use those coins to like personalize your journal. So you can get like an avatar. We're eventually going to have more themes in the app. You can customize your avatar further, which will be exciting. And yeah, that's kind of where we're at right now. And of course you can always like go through all your old entries and see what you've been talking about and things like that. But that's like the basic use case.
And do you get feedback on your entries? Like, let's say you're going through the imposter syndrome course. Do you get feedback based on your responses?
So right now you don't. We're very focused on privacy at this point, and we also don't want to trip down into the like artificial intelligence or machine learning path too soon. I think it kind of gets into a gray area when you have dynamic responses to what you have said. This is like, internally in the team, it's a very discussed like point because we've seen a lot of chatbot apps do really well. Like there are a couple that come to mind that like are more like that, where it's like, you're talking and it's responding dynamically and it feels like there's someone else there. And that part of it, I think, is actually really good. Those chatbot apps, I think what they do really well is they're optimizing for loneliness, which is awesome. Like they're helping people like, because it feels like there's someone responding to them and giving them attention and allowing them to just like, vent these things and like have someone like feels like someone's listening. And that's great. But we also are definitely hesitant about going down that path because at this point, we think that while we can definitely help people and we'll get better at curating the kinds of questions we want to give people, like when they're talking about things or in different phases of their life, we think it's a little bit too soon for us to start assessing or labeling or trying to create conversations that are probably better off with a therapist. So what we do see is that a lot of our users that go to a therapist use us as a really nice complement to therapy, where when they're out of the session, they can catalog all their thoughts and maybe work on something that their therapist asked them to work on with Wellnest. And then they'll come back into the session like, hey, here's what I worked on this week. And I think that's actually really good for a couple reasons. One being for the therapist, therapists often, I've spoken to a lot of therapists at this point, obviously, and therapists, get frustrated when a client comes in and they have a, hour session booked, and for the first 45, 50 minutes, they're talking about how great their day's been going. And then the last 5 minutes, something might come out that's like, oh, that is not good, and we should probably talk about that. And that's something that tends to happen in therapy, is like clients don't want to, people just like get like clam up and don't want to talk about the hard things, which is obviously too bad. And I think Wellnest helps with that. Like, so that and then the other side is like, as a patient, you're with your therapist 1% of the time, right? Like you're with your therapist once a week, once every 2 weeks, whatever that is. It's very little of your actual time. So you want to have, like full, like holistic help. And when you're not in your appointment, it's really helpful to use Wellnest just as something to like talk to and like unpack things, and like have something dedicated there for you that you can use. Like if something happens between appointments, which it likely is, right? So it's a good thing to have something there to catalog what's going on. And then you can go into your therapist session and be like, okay, yeah, like this is actually what happened this week. And get out of the headspace of like, okay, today was a bad day, so I'm just going to talk about that. Or today was a good day, so I'm just going to talk about that. So that's a dynamic that we like.
Yeah. That's fantastic.
I would think that would be a therapist's dream, honestly, right? Because, and let's face it, like sometimes we repress the bad things. So maybe something happened the day after your last therapy session, and you just like dealt with it in the moment and then pushed it off to the side and you completely forgot about it.
Yeah.
But if you were journaling about it every day, you could like go in there with your app and say, okay, oh yeah, I remember that happened. Let's dive into that more today.
So and especially that I was just going to say, because no one's really listening to you. It's just you. It's like, why not lay it all out there? Right.
Yeah. Why not lay it all out there? Yeah. And it's funny. I mean, I definitely did that. Like when I was with my therapist at Michigan, who, I was with him for like 2.5 years. And he was great. And I hesitate to say that it's bad to go in there and not talk about the shitty things. Like I'd have my weeks, and something that was really clear. Just one thing I want to point out, like my therapist, the thing that stuck with me the most from him was that this is a journey of waves of in and out. Like some days feel good, some days feel bad. And it's like finding that equilibrium and that harmony of the two that's what's really important. And that really stuck with me. And, of course I'd go in some days like where it was a good day. Like it was, I was feeling good, something happened or whatever. I just woke up and I was feeling ready to go. And, I would talk about that and kind of ignore the worst things that happened in the week leading up to it. And while I would normally say that that's like bad, you should probably unpack it, I'll say that there is something oddly therapeutic about, because a therapist is like a third party, and it's nice to just have a space to talk to someone who's not every day involved in your life. Sometimes it is nice to just like, just talk about the good things or just like, get out whatever is going on in your life. And I don't know. I mean, I think regardless, this is why I think just having a therapist that you see consistently is so important, because you have time. It's not like you're, on the clock and you have to like have a really like deep dive session every time, because it's heavy, my therapist would always like push me. He wouldn't push me. He'd be like, like, well, how are you really doing? Like, what is really going on here with this? And I'd be like, yeah. And it would take me, every time it took me a bit to like transcend into that state of like, yeah, okay. Here's like the feelings and emotions that I'm like really struggling with or whatever. And to be honest, I also didn't mention this before. My shaping of how I moved forward after losing my dad was very much from perspective of what I had seen of two of my closest friends my freshman year. So in the beginning of my freshman year, my best friend at Michigan lost his dad. And then 2 months later, my roommate at Michigan lost his dad. And then 3 months later, I lost my dad. And my best friend never wanted to talk about it. And I didn't know whether that was weird or not until my roommate lost his and was totally, of course, taken by it. And it was these two really completely different ways of coping and understanding grief. And that was when I knew how complicated mental health and grief specifically must be, and how like your personality and just the way your brain works completely changes the outcome of what you want to do and how you're going to react to something. And when I lost my dad, once I could think clearly, I was like, I know I can't, if I like descend and fall into this pit, I will have a really, really hard time of getting out. And I don't want to do that. But I also don't want to not talk about it, because I'm just not like that. I am a very, I get energy from people. So I like talking about things. So that really shaped like how I moved forward and how I like treated the situation. But yeah, I mean, going to a therapist myself was like extremely helpful in unpacking a lot of those things, and understanding why I was like that, and why I liked talking to people about it or whatever. So it was just a really, really like very I grew a lot those few years. And yeah, I don't know how we got here. I apologize. I may have trailed off a bit there, but yeah, that's just something else that was on my mind.
Well, no, and that, I mean, it sounds like you went through so much, freshman year of college, which is already such a hard transition for a young person, just under the circumstances of leaving home. So the fact that you were able to recognize what you needed to do for yourself to go on a path that was going to be good for you, under such traumatic circumstances is really amazing. And I think that's so awesome that you were able to really, focus on what you needed to do to get yourself to a place that you felt like you could, deal with all of your emotions and the situation, and grow through that.
Yeah, I mean, just a very transformative experience. And so diving into like this student mental health crisis a bit more, obviously you had these two experiences freshman year, but just in general, what do you think's driving the crisis? I mean, you're talking to all these people and doing these little groups, early on when you were developing the app.
Yeah.
And then maybe even kind of into your vision about a world without mental health stigma, because I think it's still very, very present out there.
So I'll start off by saying this is a very, very complicated, there's not really a clear answer as to what's driving this. I think there's a lot of factors. And to date, I don't still know like what the main driver of all of this is. I'll say that in general, obviously going to college, it's a very unique point in your life because there's a lot of things changing. It's like a moment of transition. And I think that's something that I talk to my therapist about that a lot too, is like transitionary periods of your life are often where you start questioning a lot of things or start feeling emotions that you don't understand or just need more help. And that's especially true in college. Obviously, there's a lot of people that are younger and older that are also struggling with mental health issues, wherever that is on the spectrum. But we do see a lot of people starting, like the most afflicted age with mental illnesses is 18 to 24-year-olds. Almost 30% of 18 to 24-year-olds struggle with any mental illness, AMI, as they call it. And that is really peculiar. Like, why are young people struggling so much? And I think it is due in that sense to being such a transitionary period in your life. I think that social media has a impact. It has varying impacts for different people, I would say. I think some people, especially women, it can be extremely damaging too. And I think that's really a really, really tough problem to solve, because social media has also unlocked a lot of doors for us in society and changed how a lot of things work, which I think is great. And it's hard to ignore that. But there's also obvious issues that need to be addressed with social media. And then I think there's been over the years, there's been more and more pressure kind of throughout the entire educational experience, I would say. I don't know how it was in, when you guys went to college, but when I was going to college, I had a lot of family pressure about different things going on and my grades and what college I was going to go to. Not to dog my mom at all, but she was really, really, like drilling me into that. And like, I had a college counselor, I had I did like ACT, like prep, like every day of the week. Like there was just a lot of pressure all around. And that definitely adds a lot to some, to younger kids' plates, I would say. And then lastly, I would just say that a lot of people struggle with not knowing how to talk about mental health. I think that's something that has become clearer and clearer. And what's really sad, especially in students, is that you see a lot of suicides where no one knew, like the family didn't know or their friends didn't know. And that really like worries me, because that's kind of the core of the issue, right? Is that a lot of young people weren't educated in these issues, and like don't know how to deal with them, don't know who to talk to about them, don't know if they're real or valid, maybe grew up in families where mental health wasn't ever talked about or like validated as an issue. So I think, again, a lot of it does have to do with education, and being open and transparent and always, having a support group. I think a lot of people, I feel very fortunate to have grown up with a very strong community, but there are lots and lots and millions of people who don't feel that way, or don't have a strong community to lean on. I know I would have been a lot more lost had I not had that. So I think that's like one of the more important things is like, as people feel lonelier, as people start to struggle more, as pressure surmounts, you don't have an outlet. And that is my best guess at what is causing a lot of young people to struggle. And then on top of that is being able to see other people not struggling, and that makes, or appear to not be struggling, and that makes the gap even larger. And that's a really key point too, is like appear to not be struggling, which social media does a very good job at, is like you always want to post your highlights. And that's great. Like, who doesn't want to see your highlights? Like that's, I don't think there's malintent there, but I do think that to someone who's not feeling good about themselves, social media is probably not the best place to turn, when they're feeling like that. I know I try not to do that. So yeah, that's kind of my best understanding of the issue. But of course it goes a lot deeper than that. And I am also, I studied computer science. Like I'm not any sort of expert, but from my conversations with people, that's what I would guess.
And now we want to take a quick break from today's conversation to give a shout out to one of our sponsors, Lakewinds Co-op, which is a favorite grocery store of ours to shop at in the Twin Cities. We love that Lakewinds has such high standards and vets every single product on their shelves, including their amazing personal care and supplement section, so that we don't have to. As busy parents, we don't always have the time or the desire to read every ingredient label. And when we shop at Lakewinds, we have confidence that it's been done for us.
Grocery shopping should be an enjoyable and calm experience, and Lakewinds does everything to make your experience stress-free from the moment you walk in the door. The decor and aesthetics are really calming and inviting, and we have never met such knowledgeable and friendly staff in all the departments, including meat and seafood, in the wellness department, and produce. We love Lakewind's produce section, which focuses on organic and fair trade products. About 95% of the produce is organic and local as much as possible. And they really support the local and small sustainable farmers right here in Minnesota and Wisconsin.
The meat buyers actually visit the farms. They talk to the ranchers and see their practices to ensure that the animals are ethically raised and treated, which is really important to us. All of their meat is free from additives, synthetic preservatives, nitrates, antibiotic residues, steroids, and added growth hormones. Unlike many traditional grocery stores, Lakewinds has a banned ingredient list that is used to vet the products on their shelf, which includes artificial flavors, colors, preservatives, high fructose corn syrup, hydrogenated oil, etc. This applies to the food on their shelves as well as the supplements and beauty and personal care products in their wellness department. If an item doesn't meet the product standards, Lakewinds doesn't allow it on their store, and we love that peace of mind.
We also love how they seek out local small batch makers who meet their standards and really try to support our local businesses. We all know that maintaining a healthy body and mind has huge implications on our immune systems and being able to fight off the flu. So support your health and wellness in the new year by shopping at your local co-op. You can find the fabulous Lakewinds co-ops in Minnetonka, Chanhassen, and Richfield, or have groceries delivered from Instacart. While Lakewinds Co-op is a member-owned store, you don't have to be a member to shop and receive their weekly specials. Although we highly recommend that you do become members like us for additional monthly savings and an annual dividend.
You can find out more by going to lakewinds.coop, and when you're there, be sure to check out their delicious recipes. And if you don't live in the Twin Cities, we highly encourage you to find your local co-op by heading over to National Co-op Grocers and finding one near you. Well, I mean, your life experiences at such a young age have provided you with so much valuable insight. I mean, just what you said was very profound and the insight is, I think would be very valuable for others to hear.
Cool.
So,
And I think it's so true what you're saying about,
yes.
what people do on social media. And if you're not feeling good inside and then you go on and you see all these perfect people doing all these perfect things, it doesn't help.
It doesn't help. And I will say one platform in particular, and maybe you guys disagree with this. I think a platform that has done really well at showing people in their more authentic selves is TikTok. And I think what's really cool and what part of our strategy has been at Wellnest is there are lots and lots of therapists that are blowing up on TikTok and giving advice and talking about things and being real. And that's aside from like the authenticity that I see in a lot of other of like the users that, are big on TikTok and whatnot. Like that's all great too. But the therapists that we've seen and like these, like the life coaches that we've seen on TikTok, like they have huge followings and people are really consuming that. And we were like very interested in this phenomenon where young people were learning a majority of their mental health knowledge and coping mechanisms from TikTok. And I was like, that is crazy. I never would have guessed that, but it's so true. And it's like, you can't ignore that. And so we were reaching out to a lot of these therapists that we saw doing well on TikTok, having great followings, always like posting about their mechanisms or thoughts, or whatever. And we'd find people with like niches. So we found a lot of therapists, like a lot of our courses that we have on Wellnest are from these awesome therapists, life coaches, or athletes who have a specific niche field that they really care about and they're very outspoken about in terms of like mental health. And for example, one of them, this guy, Dr. Kojo Sarfo, he's a therapist and he wrote our social anxiety question pack. And it's like one of the main like themes that he talks about on his channel. So then he like gets a lot of his audience on Wellnest, and people can talk about it like in a more open space, like in the Wellnest app, which is awesome. So it's so interesting and fascinating. And I'm curious to see how that's going to continue to change too, because people are getting a lot more vocal about their mental health. And that makes me really happy. So I think I'm hoping that this trend is getting better over time of people being more authentic with themselves and with others too.
I literally had this conversation with my daughter yesterday, and she was telling me how she hates Instagram now because it's so fake and blah, 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 and how she just loves TikTok because people are real. And she's like, I'm learning about cooking and I'm learning. She's like, I don't do dances. I don't follow dancing. She's like, there's so much more on TikTok, Mom.
Yeah.
And it's just funny. And she was just literally saying how she feels like people are so much more themselves.
Yeah.
Well, and we need more of that, and we need to like let down the barriers and all this stigma, right? But I agree with you so much, Tommy, about having a platform to talk about these things and having a community around mental health. And I'm not going to dive into it now, but I just personally grew up and we didn't talk about it. And I had a very personal situation in my house. And I think I was almost 40 before I shared this with anyone, so I'm so happy that people now have that platform, and what you're doing is so amazing, and been able to unlock people's voices and clear their heads.
So what kind of practical tips or advice would you give to our listeners to kind of get them into the habit of journaling daily?
That's a great question. So we try and help people do that with a few different things in the app itself. Within Wellnest, I'll speak within Wellnest first, and then I'll speak more generally about journaling. But in Wellnest, like, you can set a weekly goal. Again, it's very gamified, so you can set a goal of how many times you want to journal in a week. You can also set like daily notifications, daily reminders to help you, like, at a certain time, like, this is the time I want to journal and unpack things. So that's good. And if you like hit your weekly goal, like, you get extra gold and whatever. So that's like great and helps a lot of our users stay consistent to it. I'll also add, then externally, journaling is just a really great medium to get what's going on in your head, like, off of your chest, right? Like, that's awesome. Like, that's really good. I think journaling is very creative, and it's a really nice way to just clarify thoughts that are worrying around in your head. And like, that's awesome. So we are really passionate about getting more people into that. Now, I also have a paper journal. I don't call it a journal, I guess, but it's like my notebook. And every time there are a lot of thoughts in my head, I'll just like open it up, write as much as I can down. Yep, you have those. Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah, like it's just great. Like, I keep it on my desk right next to me. Yeah, you too, Stephanie. Yeah, it's just good. It's good to have it right next to you, right? And like, I always try and have it there to like write those things out. But what's good about Wellnest specifically is that because it's prompted, I can, like, it reminds me to think about things that not only are just like, day to day getting things like clarified in my head, but also like that the things that matter and like checking in on my well-being, things like that. So that's kind of like the difference. I still use both all the time. They're just kind of for different functions really for me at this point. But yeah, it's really important to just keep your journal in a place where you habitate, or where you work. Like, I keep mine on my desk. I think that's super important. And I think the easiest way that I like formed my habit, I mean, I had a hard time doing it, right? Like, one of the biggest reasons one of the biggest problems we were trying to solve with Wellnest early on was that if you told someone that journaling is good for them, they probably wouldn't push back. Like, they'd probably believe you. The issue is getting them to do it all the time, right? It's that motivating factor, right? Like, that's what's hard. And a lot of people will stare at the entry, like the blank page, and not know what to write or not know how it's helping them. And I think with the way that we format things in Wellnest with like, yeah, you just use your voice, it's much quicker. And, we'll ask you like directed questions at different things. I think the value becomes a little bit clearer earlier on because of that. And I think that's, at least for me, what got me journaling every day was using Wellnest, because it was hard for me, speaking truthfully, to spend time journaling every day, because it was like, why is this helpful to me? I don't know fully yet. And Mars, we talked a lot about this, and I'm sure she could have a much better explanation about it, but she was like, it took me like 2 years to start to see how impactful it was in my life, because I could, go through and reflect on any period of my life really easily because of it. And that's something that we are trying to work on a lot more now, which is like allowing reflection to be a lot easier, bringing things like memories into the app, which would allow you to like look back at like a specific day, kind of randomly in a fun moment. And also being able to just search really quickly. Like, if you want to search all the times you mentioned a specific word or a subject, like, those are all things that we're working on, and we think will increase or not increase, I guess, decrease the time to value, as we call it. Like a journal, like it takes a long time to really visualize and realize the value. And with Wellnest, we're hoping we can decrease that time to value, hopefully by like 10 to 100x. Like you can start seeing how this is helping you in your first or second entry. So that's what we're really trying to do. But those are kind of the ways that we attacked that really difficult and complicated problem of like that motivation. And honestly, we looked at a lot of like fitness apps too to see how they did that, because they struggle with the same thing, like getting people to talk about things every day, or to work out every day. Like it's hard. It's not an easy task.
We always say it's simple, not easy, right?
Yes, it's simple,
you can tell
not
someone
easy.
To drink more water, but actually
it's simple, not
getting
easy.
them to do
I
it.
love that.
And, we have, so right now, my family, my parents, my sister, and my brother and his family are doing this 30-day challenge. And one of the things on there is journaling, or at least saying what you're grateful for at the end of the day. So, and we actually have like a QR code we scan, and we log everything in every day.
Very cool.
And I am excited because I have 3 kids, 15, 12, and 10. And I know when I put this app on their phone, like I put it on my phone, but I hadn't quite thought about it for them. One, it's going to really help them. I mean, they're on their devices all the time, let's face it, right?
Right.
And they are much going to prefer that as much as I love the paper journal, especially my 15-year-old. Yeah. I think this is really going to help them start a habit, because the goal is after 30 days, it's been enough time that hopefully you can do this on your own going forward. So yeah. I know my kids are going to love it and all the features of it.
I appreciate that.
So Tommy, where can people download your app?
So we are on the App Store right now. We're coming to Android soon. We're working on that. We started work on that in the middle of December, but we're live on the App Store. So if you just search Wellnest, WELLNEST, you'll find us there. Should be like probably the first result at this point. Yeah, it's super easy. Just download it, make an account. And we only ask for like your email and your name. And you can just start journaling right away. We're very focused on like efficiency and speed and getting to journaling quickly. So yeah, that'll be like the first thing you'll see is like our daily conversation or your evening conversation. So just ways to talk about what's going on in your day. That's usually the easier thing to start off with rather than like the courses that we have, which is why we emphasize it more for like the early user.
And you do have a special offer, you said, for
we
listeners?
do. So absolutely. Yeah. So all of you listening out there can get a free month of Wellnest Premium for free. So that's what it includes all of our courses, all of those for free. And then as well as our weekly insights. So every Sunday we'll give you kind of a digest of what you talked about, like how much gold you earned or like how many entries you made, whether you hit your weekly goal or not. And that's getting better over time. We'll be able to give you cooler insights there. But yeah, it's just like a nice recap of how your week went. And then of course, like seeing all the entries you made that week and what happened. So everyone should be able to get that with a free month, which is awesome. And yeah, the app is only $5 a month, or I think we have a $24 like annual cost. So it's pretty like cheap and easy, and yeah, it's a really great way to get into the habit of talking about what's going on in your head. So highly recommend it for people that are looking for something like that.
And we'll link all this up in the show notes.
Awesome, perfect.
Absolutely. So one final question that we like to ask all of our guests is, what does the art of living well mean to you?
Great question. So,
and there's no right or wrong answer.
Yeah. I definitely don't have the right answer to this, but what I would say is, I would point back to what I was speaking to earlier about the waves of feeling good and feeling bad and finding that balance. I'm really passionate about finding what harmony means in that sense of like understanding why you're not feeling well and taking it as a growth moment, and then understanding and acknowledging when you're feeling really great and awesome and things are kicking and it's a good day. Like it's really good to acknowledge that and celebrate your wins. That's something that I try to do as much as I can. And not forget about the good things that have happened when I'm feeling like nothing's working. So to me, I try and find I try and define my art of living well as enjoying the balance and enjoying the lows as much as I enjoy the high, and trying to just be happy with everything that's been provided to me, and be grateful for the people that I have in my life who help me get through the times when I'm not feeling as good as I want to. So that's kind of to me how I see the art of living well.
That's beautiful, and you're so mature. You have
Thank you.
a lot of wisdom and maturity for someone your age.
Thank you.
I love seeing that.
So do I. This has been such a wonderful conversation. Talk about being energized by other people earlier. Marty and I know, are super energized right now by this conversation. And can't wait to share it with everyone else.
Appreciate that. That.
Thanks so much, Tommy, for coming.
Thanks so much for having me, you guys. This was super fun. I really appreciated being here. And I hope you guys have a great rest of your week.
You too.
You too.
Thank you so much for listening to the Art of Living Well podcast. We are so grateful that you joined us today.
If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with a friend or anyone else you think may benefit from this information. We'd love for you to subscribe to our podcast, leave us a review, and tag the Art of Living Well podcast on social media.
If you want more inspiration in between episodes, you can find us on social media at theartofliving_well on Instagram and Facebook, where we will share snippets from our daily lives and our journey to living well.